The content presented is for entertainment purposes only. Some content may not be suitable for all viewers. Viewer discretion is advised. Well, it's official. I need to build a new computer. This oldie but a goodie has been Frankensteined 2 or 3 different times. I've bought parts, used parts from my brother, and used those. Used to have 2 computers. Those broke, and I had to make them into one computer so it'd still work. So yeah, it's probably been like 10 or 12 years. It's probably time. And that's why we started a little late today, which is really unfortunate. I usually do like to start on time, but for some reason my broadcaster kept crashing, and so here we are 20 minutes later. So for those that are participating and watching, thank you so much for watching, and those that are checking out the video, thank you. We appreciate it. It's been a very long day. It's been a very long day, but it's been a good day. It's been a pretty good week as well. Just really busy, a lot of good things happening, and a lot of focus that's required from the brain. But it's gonna be good. A lot of good things are happening with the podcast. We are moving to doing some outlines now, so it's a little bit more organized. It's not going to be as off the cuff. I mean, it's going to still be a conversational podcast, but we're going to actually have like topics and quotes and things we actually want to talk about. I'll also do a lot more research. I'm actually spending several hours on these outlines. I just created the outline 2 nights ago. I made the first one last night. Unfortunately, it's not this one. This one's actually one I tried to create without an outline in mind, and I actually created the outline, and then with that general outline created a new podcast. So I hope this one goes well. Unfortunately, we are missing the lovely Rianne and the handsome Alakai, and we hopefully will be able to experience them live here next Thursday. I do have a big announcement that I'd like to make because we are beginning to get a bit more serious with this podcast. We are starting to put more time and energy and effort into it, like I was saying with these outlines. So plan on at least 2 podcasts a week. Yay! Hopefully I can get 3 or 4 outlines going, and maybe we can even push it to 3 in the future. I think right now 2 is probably the max we can do, with me doing one solo on Tuesday and us trying to get together with hopefully at least 2 of us, if not all 3 of us, on Thursdays. Again, same time, 8 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. And so I hopefully you guys will be excited to look forward to those. So here we go. So the last week, I've been doing some changes in my personal life because there's a lot of things that have happened over this past 2020 year and moving into 2021. And, very soon we're going to be in 2022. Can you believe it? Time flies when you're having fun and you're working hard. We're hardly working depending on what you're doing. Hopefully you're working hard. Hopefully you're focusing and working towards the things that you want in life. For me, I've been kind of going through some things to kind of better me and my personal self. And part of that is changing the way that I view my body, changing the way that I fuel my body. Am I perfect at it? No, still working on it. But I'm really excited to share some my personal achievements that I've had over this last week. So let's just dive right in. So about a month ago. This was just before we were going to Yellowstone Park to visit, not only do like a family reunion with my father and his family, but also to have like a little vacation for my wife and I. And we have these cute little cabins just off of Hebgen Lake on the Montana side of Yellowstone Park. And it was absolutely a blast. But the thing that she pulled out, she's like, hey, let's listen to a book while we go up. And she happened to be finishing a book. And I was like, yeah, just put on whatever, you're driving, you just, listen to what you want. You're the driver. And so while we were sitting there listening to it, it was the latter part of this book called Bright Lines Eating, by a PhD doctor, Susan Pierce Thompson. And I was listening to the book, and I was listening to the different case studies of the individuals that went through this eating plan, the wonderful results that they had. And then it talked a lot about how the meal plan works. And when I was listening to it, I was just like, okay, that sounds kind of interesting, because it's not like, the quote unquote diet plans that people, feed you and just say, hey, go on this diet and you'll lose all this weight. And then you go and do that diet, and then you're like, okay, well, you've lost your weight, you're done. You go back to eating the crappy way you've eaten all your life. And then you gain all that weight back. And it's just like this defeating, rotating cycle that doesn't really benefit you. And so I've really steered away from diets. I've purposefully is just like, okay, if I find something that looks like it makes sense in my mind, it has some data behind it, obviously a doctor is involved with it. I mean, I would look at it and see if that's something that makes sense. And so I really wanted to do something kind of throughout this year of just I need to make some changes and do it for the better, so I can kind of get a hold of some aspects in my life, especially when it comes to food. And so after I listened to that book, I was like, sweetie, which book is that? And so I got the title of the book. And then after our vacation, I decided I would listen to the book. And so after we got back from Yellowstone, that next week, I actually listened to the book over the next few days. A lot of you know I deliver packages for my day job, and it does pretty well for our family. And I think it's going to hold us over until our podcast, our website, our business, whatever that we are cultivating right now. It's going to hold us over until we get to the point where we can transition. And I'm really excited for that day. It's going to be awesome. And so after I listened to the book, I was like, well, okay, not only is this hey, this is a lifestyle change. This isn't like a diet. This isn't like your traditional, you go on this thing, you lose all the weight, and then you can go back to what you're doing. It's not like a bunch of shakes, so you don't eat any food, but you drink these shakes, and it has all these vitamins and minerals and proteins and amino acids and stuff, and you consume this 2 or 3 times a day, and maybe you have a meal at night or a salad or whatever. But the thing is they don't, in my experience anyway, I haven't really found one that had a plan after the fact to not only keep the weight off, but to maintain where you're at. So you're not fluctuating more than maybe 5 or 10 pounds. And obviously, depending on the week, it could be, more or less around there. And so after I listened to it, I was just like, okay, this is it. This is the thing. This is the thing that's going to get me to the next point that I need to be at with my body. This is going to get to the point where I need to change not only my body, but it'll also change my mind in the way that it'll make me more healthy. And it's backed by, it was created by a scientist. Well, not a scientist. I mean, I have it written down here. Oh, there it goes. For some reason, my computer's acting up, and so I apologize if I have to jump around a little bit. But something that was really interesting is that this person has a PhD. It's not neuroscience. What is it? I think I scrolled down too far. Come on, Jacob. You can do it. I believe in you. I should have. Oh, here it is. Here's her education. So Thompson went to college at University of California. I can't speak today. Berkeley, graduating in 1997 with a graduate degree, Bachelor of Arts in Cognitive Science. She attended graduate school in Brain Cognitive Sciences at the University of Rochester, receiving a master's degree in 2001 and a PhD in 2003 in Brain and Cognitive Sciences. That's where her schooling comes from. From 2003 to 2005, Thompson did postdoctoral research with a teaching fellowship at the University of New South Wales program, School of Psychology in Sydney, Australia. So there's credits behind her, which, for some people it's just like, oh, you don't really need it, or you do need it, or whatever. But for me, I was just like, okay, I really need somebody that really has their education with the brain, because for those of you that don't know me very well, I've struggled with ADHD my entire life. I've struggled with depression, suicidal ideation, panic attacks. I can't remember the other word that people call them, but basically, you all of a sudden, like, your chest tightens and you can't catch your breath. And so I really wanted somebody that would focus in a very mental and a very focused in the brain. And this seemed like right up my alley, because, it's somebody that's not only struggled with food and addiction, but she has her education in it. So let's just dive right in here. You can go to her website. Her website is susanpiercethompson.com. Also, you can look up the book. We actually got on an Audible, and I think she reads it, and she does an incredible job. You can also get the Bright Lines Eating book on Audible, which we absolutely love. Get a little bit of water. So this is some of her words from her website. I'm just going to read a couple of these to you guys. And I quote, "I was a normal-sized kid, maybe a little chunky, who grew into an overweight teenager." Does that sound familiar to anybody? It does for me. By the age of 12, I had started a diet. And at the age of 14, I found the most effective diet ever: drugs. The next 6 years was a blur of intoxication, dropping out of high school, multiple failed attempts to put it all together. All that changed on August 9th, 1994, just 6 weeks after my 20th birthday, when I was taken to a 12-step meeting and given the gift of recovery. Through dedication and a whole lot of grace, I remain clean and sober to this day. Now, this is pretty incredible to me, because not only does she have the science stuff behind her in her education, but she actually went through this stuff herself. She went through, the dark times of having food addiction and having addiction to drugs. Now, I personally haven't had addiction to hard drugs. However, I did smoke cigarettes for about 6 years of my life, 5 or 6 years of my life. It was seriously the most hardest thing I've ever had to quit in my entire life. It took me about a year or so. I think it was like a year or 2 months. And it took me starting and stopping so many times through that year and really struggling with it and having a difficult time. But I'm so grateful that not only did I kept at it, and I kept working at it and kept working at it to the point where I was just like, okay, I'm done with that now. I don't need it anymore. And honestly, I think God really had a lot to do with it. And also my perseverance. And I think coupled with those two things, I was able to get through it. It definitely wasn't a cold turkey thing. I kind of weaned myself off. I was smoking about, I think 1.5 during the week. And on the weekends, I was up to like 3 packs a day. And it was so freaking expensive. I mean, tobacco companies are making so much money. I know like the taxes are high on it and everything, but man, they're making a shit ton of money. All right, moving right along. 2 years studying cognitive sciences didn't feel like it it like nearly enough. So I applied to PhD programs. I got into every school I applied to and had a tough choice ahead of me. In the end, I turned down scholarships to Johns Hopkins and UC's San Diego and left the San Francisco Bay Area heading east to attend the University of Rochester in Western New York. On the outside, things were going great. Inside, though, a battle was raging. My weight was climbing, and each autumn when the light changed, I sank into a depression that felt like being trapped under a boulder. Therapy and large doses of antidepressant medications were band-aids, and I needed solutions. For many long years, my life was an endless series of Groundhog Days: oversleeping, binging, weight gain, depression, therapy, grad school, wash, rinse, repeat. At some point, my weight officially climbed past the obese marker on the BMI chart. I didn't realize it, though. So I kind of want to share a little bit of my story, kind of piggybacking off of quoting from her website in her own words. So I knew I was struggling with my weight, not because I looked in the mirror and I was like, oh yeah, objectively you are fat or you're struggling with your weight. This was back, I want to say in the late 2000s. I was doing pest control at that time. Had been doing it for about 3 years or so. And all of a sudden, I was having some issues where my chest was tightening. All of a sudden I would lose my breath. And this thing just kept happening and happening and happening. And then all of a sudden I developed a cough, and all of a sudden I had bronchitis. It was just this very strange thing. And I went to the doctor, and they were just like, whoa, you need to stop work right now. You need to take it easy. So I went ahead and I took medical leave off of work. They basically hooked up an AKG machine that I had to go, to the doctor to get taken on and taken off so they can actually read it overnight. Blood work, the whole 9 yards. And after, I think it was honestly about 3 or 4 weeks, they had me back, and they're just like, well, is it still happening? What's going on? I'm like, yeah, everything's still happening. Like, I'm still having this tightening in my chest. And they basically got all the tests back, and they're like, yeah, you're actually normal on pretty much everything. You seem to be fairly healthy. And I actually looked at the doctor's chart that he wrote down on, and I looked at the bottom and wrote down obese, and I'm just like, okay, so the doctor thinks I'm fat. And that's actually when I learned that I was having panic attacks, which was really surprising, even for me at that time. And at that time, I was eating out at least 2 times a day. I was not eating at home. I wasn't making my own food. I was really not happy about life. I was struggling to hold a job. The interesting thing about food is that if you go too far into eating crap food for long periods of time, it's really hard to get your brain out of that rut and into a more positive frame of mind. And that was kind of my cycle, as I would, oversleep. Like I was sleeping anywhere between 10 and 12 hours a day. I was binging on food. I would gain weight. I would get more depressed. I would try to go to therapy. I'd get those antidepressants, and very similar to this. I mean, not going to school at that time, but the wash, rinse, repeat, unfortunately, was something that happened quite often. And it was a very hard, very dark time in my life. I remember calling my mother and just sobbing over the phone. I was like, I need to talk to you. Come to the park and talk to me. At that point in time, I just couldn't handle being at a job, and I had chosen to quit and to leave. I wasn't happy about my weight. I wasn't happy about my body. I wasn't happy about the way that my brain was working. I wasn't happy about the choices that I made in life. I wasn't happy about, smoking cigarettes all the time. And it got to the point where I was just like, why am I even living at this point? I'm not I'm basically living just to basically stay alive. I'm not living a full life. I'm not working towards anything that's going to be important to me. I'm not working towards anything that's going to benefit me in the long run. And I just remember sobbing, just like it was uncontrollable, talking to my mother. And it was hard to talk to her because it absolutely broke her heart to hear, her son struggling with these kinds of things. And I look back, and I've had, those points in my life where I felt like, I don't want to be here anymore. I don't have any purpose. I don't have self-worth. I don't love myself. And I look back and I, even though those were very sad parts of my life, I'm still very grateful for the experiences that I have had, because it literally helped me to look within myself and to find that purpose in life. And that's one of the reasons why I started this podcast. I wanted to start this podcast to have more meaningful conversations with family and friends. And it became this thing where we get together and we have these really deep conversations. And, when before we gather, we hug and we say, hey, how was your day? And how are things in the week? And what's going on with your life? And then we have our discussions. And at the end, we sit and we talk and we chat and we, talk about life and the universe and everything. And we hug each other and we say, hey, you have a great week and we'll see you again. Like, this podcast has really become something very special for me. And it's become something much greater than just a short period of time to have deep conversations. And I'm really excited for its future. I think we have a really beautiful future ahead of us. I did not think I'd be getting this emotional. Get a little bit of water. And let's continue on from Miss Susan. Sweet mercy finally came in the form of another 12-step program, this time for food addiction. Actually, I had been in another food-related 12-step program for nearly 8 years by this point. I just hadn't been able to make it work. A friend who had recently joined the food addiction program showed me how to lose all my excess weight and keep it off. I went from a size 16 to a size 4 in just a few months, shedding nearly 60 pounds, and it was given a new life once again. Oh, and I was given a new life once again. Can't even read. I gotta wipe the... I got some allergies in my eyes. When I returned to work after Alexis and Zoe, these are her two daughters, I believe, were born, I started teaching a course on the psychology of eating and body image. I had already been investigating the psychology and neuroscience of successful weight loss for some time, but when I started teaching the psychology of eating, my research efforts really intensified. Over the next several years, I pieced together the scientific backdrop to the resolution I had already been implementing to stay thin and to help others to lose their weight as well. Through this process, I developed the system I now call bright line eating. I had known what to do for years. Now I knew why it worked. And I think that's really interesting. So after I listened to the book, we got home from vacation from Hebgen Lake in Yellowstone, Montana. And I took a week and I listened to the book and really thought about it, and I prayed about it, and I talked to God, and I'm just knocking on that sky. And I'm just like, is this, this something I really need to do? Do I need to really, is this the thing that's going to really begin my journey into healthy eating? Is it something I'm really going to engage in? Am I really going to Am I really going to do it? And am I really going to make it? Am I really going to get to that weight goal that I want to be at? Am I really going to be able to look in the mirror and really go, wow, man, you're looking great? I think it's really interesting that there's a stigma in the world where only women have body images, and that is completely and utterly wrong. Men have body images issues as well, and they struggle. Some struggle just as hard. Some struggle very little. But there's those sensey guys like me, to coin a term from what TV series was that? Was that from Scrubs? They called them sensies, where JD called himself a sensei because he's sensitive. Anyway, us sensitive guys, definitely have struggled with that, and I'm still struggling with it. It's not as bad because I've gotten to that point where I do love myself more, and I do love my body more for what it is right now, and I have accepted it. I've accepted all the choices that I've made. I've accepted all of those late nights, eating piles of carne asada fries and rolled tacos and 2 liters of Dr. Pepper twice in a day. I know that sounds really gross, and honestly it was, because you never feel satiated. You don't ever feel good after you eat, drink all that crap. But I really wanted to take on the responsibility. I really wanted to be like, okay, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to do it right. I'm going to prep the meals. I'm going to weigh out the vegetables. I'm going to cook the vegetables. I'm going to weigh out the meats. I'm going to cook the meats. Weigh it after you cook, of course. That would just be silly to weigh it before. Excuse me. But I decided that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to I joked around with my wife. I'm like, hey, sweetie, I'm going to do this. This is going to become my new religion, and I'm going to do it until I get it right. And even today, even though I've been doing it for about a week and a few days, to test it out and then to actually focus really hard on doing it well for a week, I still struggle. I'm not perfect. Basically, what it all comes down to is the bright lines, which are basically lines you don't cross. And those lines are no sugar, no flour, eat your prepared meals. Oh, what was the 4th one? Shoot. I'm going to have to Google this really quick. Bright lines, eating. Call them rules. They're called bright lines. Oh, eat a specific amount of pre-selected food. That's right. And no eating in between meals. So no flour, no sugar, no eating between meals, and eat a specific amount of pre-selected food. So those are the 4 bright lines they call them, and those are the lines you're not supposed to cross. Well, I've been doing fairly well. I haven't done very good this week. This week's been kind of nutty. But obviously, even when you kind of backslide a little bit, you get back on the horse and you keep on riding. You fall off your bike, you get back on it and you keep on riding. You fall off your skateboard, you get back up, you keep on riding. You just keep doing that. And just like what I did when I decided to quit smoking, I can do this. Even if it takes me years. Like, I'll get to the point where I'm just barely, having a treat here and there. Or I have something that has flour and stuff like that. So just take it one day at a time. That's all I focus on. Because if I don't focus on that, of taking the, one day at a time, it kind of gets overwhelming for me. And so that's why I say just take it one day at a time. If you have some candy, it's okay. Just do better at the next meal. Do better at the next day. Do better the next week. So on and so forth. Okay. Gosh, I'm just like recalling back to that time where that doctor wrote obese on the bottom of his clipboard. And I realize I'm well 100 pounds over my BMI. I'm considered obese, not morbidly, but definitely obese. Okay, here's another story. And I apologize if I'm fumbling over my words. That's part of some of the side effects I'm having with this plan, and I'll explain in just a little bit. But part of the thing that drives me is that about 3 or 4 years ago, my wife and I, we were living out in around Cleveland, Ohio, and there's a theme park. I think it's called Cedar Springs or Cedar Falls or something like that. But anyway, we decided it would be really fun to go to this place, and it has some of the tallest and some of the fastest roller coasters in the world. And we're just like, oh, we got to ride on those. It's going to be so much fun. And when we got there and we started getting in line and getting to the next part of the line where you actually got to sit into the chair and lock yourself in to see if you can ride the ride. And unfortunately, some of those rides we couldn't go on. And of course, there was these other portions where they've changed the seats in some of the rides. And so when you go and you do the test click in just to make sure that, you can actually get in and, click in safely, so you'll stay on the actual roller coaster. They actually changed out the seats recently, and so they had an older seat that you tried in, and so when I got to the actual seat, I couldn't click in, and that was really embarrassing for me, I'm not gonna lie. And so just kind of looking back on that is that I want to really enjoy my life. We only get one life to live in this world, in this mortal existence, whether we want to call this the mediary point until we go to some other life after this, or whether you believe that after this life you just blink out of existence and it's just darkness. Either way, you really only do get one shot at this life, and you really only have like maybe 60 or 70 years of really going at it hard. And maybe it's because I'm having a midlife crisis. I don't know. Maybe my midlife crisis is this podcast. I'm going to probably call it the midlife crisis podcast when we ever get on Spotify. But maybe this is the thing that really changes my point in my life. Maybe getting on this food plan is what's really going to help change my life to the point where I get to that point where I'm just like, dang, I am living life and it's freaking awesome. Now, as I've gone through a lot of the things that I've gone through, and I've gone through a lot of like different therapy and stuff like that, I really do believe that I am living quite a bit my best life. It's not quite where I want it yet, because I do want to be making an income doing the things that I love. I really do want to bring my wife home so she doesn't have to worry about going to work, and she can create a business and grow that instead and do something that she loves and she's passionate about, as well as myself. But I really, really do want to live a healthier life. I really do want to look back at my life here in the next 10, 20, 30 years and go, you know what? I really lived, I really have lived my life, and I'm really excited to live more. And ultimately, I just want to be loved, and I want to love other people, because we're all a part of this human race together. None of us are going to make it out alive, and it makes me upset when I read these different things and articles and posts and stuff like that on social media, and just to see how divisive we are as a collective. Like, we're all a part of the same race, the human race. And we're all struggling to even recognize that basic fact that we're all human beings and we can treat each other better. But, anyways, I digress. So yeah, so a lot of really interesting stuff with food. And again, I'm gonna share all the wonderful experiences that I've had so far. And I know it's only a short amount of time. It's about a week and a half, but some really, really exciting stuff. I read another article when I was creating this outline, this particular outline. And it's actually off of the HuffPost.com. And hopefully I'll have the link in this video below. I hope I do my due diligence and actually put this link in the bottom of this. But according to the HuffPost, there is a real concern where historically the food industry has driven a lot of our food choices, and it has impacted our country as a whole. And I tend to feel this way as well. The good news is that there is a lot of information about food readily accessible through the internet. And however, even trying to determine when the best time is to consume liquids during food consumption is hard to find. And I've done research on that because I was, I don't know if it's a wives' tale or what, maybe it's a myth or whatever of like, when you should consume water. But I think I found like 5 different articles, and each one kind of, said different things. It wasn't like a very concise, I think I looked up a couple of studies as well as like when to consume liquids, but that was really hard for me because it's just like, I want to know how to do this in a way that's going to benefit my body the most. And I can't even get the straight information. And that's where I'm struggling with, how science is now being weaponized in the political realm. And that's really scary. And I know that's been going on probably since the early days of the internet. I would probably say somewhere between 2005, 2010, somewhere in there, at or around the time when the housing market crashed, I kind of noticed a very strange shift, in the way people spoke to each other and the way that these kind of things are being put together. But anyways, so the particular study is about water consumption is you should drink about a glass of water about 30 or 45 minutes before you eat, because that way, you'll actually assimilate all that water and it won't dilute, your digestive enzymes and acids and stuff that are in your stomach. That way you can get all of the nutrition. And then I read another article and it was like, no. It doesn't really matter. It doesn't dilute it. You can actually consume your water while you're eating and it doesn't really matter. In fact, it even helps you digest your foods because, like breads and stuff like that, it soaks up the water. It actually helps you digest it and actually get the nutrients quicker. I'm just like, okay, that's interesting. And then like the third option in all of this was like, oh no, you need to drink your water about 45 minutes to an hour after you eat, because that way all your enzymes and juices and acids and stuff breaks down the food and everything, and that way it's all done before you hydrate, and that's the best time to do it. And so I'm not a doctor, I'm not a nutritionist, and so I would encourage you to do your own research, to look at different not researches, I can't pull the word right now. I need some of that on it, or some of that alpha brain or something like that Joe Rogan spouts on about. I need some of that stuff because cognitively, I feel like my brain is struggling since I've been changing my food intake. And I think that's because my brain's trying to heal ultimately. But anyways, I really do have a positive outlook, even though it's going to be a little bit more difficult because of the nature of internet, that anybody can pretty much post anything, whether it's true or not. Yeah, you just got to do some more research. You got to really dig in deep, look at case studies. That's something that I'm starting to look at more, is case studies. That way there's actually some scientific data behind it, and hopefully, cross our fingers, knock on wood, that it's a scientist who's being objective about things, not including their political ideologies or their religious ideologies, or anything of that nature. I'm going to go ahead and tell my phone to be quiet because it's being a little noisy. So anyways, I would just, this is my wife, podcast, sweetie. I'll call her back here in a little bit. I got on quite late, so I'm going to try to wrap this up here in a little bit. But anyways, hopefully we have gotten you interested in our podcast today. We would love for you to leave a comment about your food journey. Let us know what your thoughts are on looking up information about food on the internet. We'd love to hear your feedback and your interest in the comments below. So please, we would love to continue the conversation. We'd love to continue that conversation over on the interwebs. You can also check us out on a lot of other social medias as well. So here's where we struggle as well, as far as like, not only with food and like health and stuff like that, but big pharmaceutical companies are big business. And unfortunately, in order to increase their business, they need to increase their customer base. And unfortunately, that customer base is you and me and my wife and my family. And they want you to stay sick so that you keep taking their medications. And this is something that I really struggle with Western medicine, because it's like, I have a headache, take a pill. I feel depressed, take a pill. I'm having trouble sleeping, take a pill. And so that's kind of, and this is also something, this is me putting my tinfoil hat on here, but I also feel like vitamins and supplement companies are kind of a part of that as well. Again, this is my tinfoil hat. This is my, this is basically me thinking that there's something more nefarious going on that probably isn't. But where you get used to taking these vitamins, you get taking these supplements and regimens and stuff like that. You get used to taking pills, or these capsules. And what does the pharmaceuticals give you? They give you capsules. So you're already used to choking down these pills because you're like, I'm trying to get healthy, but I'm not getting healthy enough. So I'm going to go to the doctor because I have a sinus infection, and he's going to give me some codeine so I can sleep. And what did you get? You get more pills. But anyways, let me take my tinfoil hat off here really quick. And since we don't have a camera, I'm actually like using my hands to actually put a hat on and take off just to kind of get out of that. If you guys have ever watched Fat, Sick, and Nearly Dead, or Super Size Me 2, those are all very, very interesting documentaries. I would definitely encourage you to check it out. So this is from the Natural News blog. All right, so we're going to have a quote here. So we're going to quote from here. For pharmaceutical drug companies, customers are those with illnesses to profit. Like in any other business, these companies must expand their customer bases and secure repeat customers. In the drug business, expanding the customer base means finding ways to make more people sick, or changing the definition of or inventing entirely new diseases to apply to more people. That freaks me out a little bit. Securing repeat customers means making sure people who buy their products, drugs, continue to do so on a continuing in other case, monthly is most common basis. Losing a customer means losing the customer to a competing drug company, or worse, losing a customer to lack of a disease and good health. The biggest threat to a pharmaceutical company is a cure. With a cure, all of their products, drugs become obsolete. They lose all their customers for that market, and if they aren't sufficiently diversified with products, i.e. drugs or other diseases, they go bankrupt. All right, let me put my tinfoil hat back on. Here's my conspiracy theory on this. Has anybody noticed how long it's taken for us to cure cancer? Think about that one. Do some research on that one. That one's very interesting. And I don't know if you all have been, keeping track of the news and stuff like that, but they've been talking about a cure. Magically, we now have a cure for cancer. Again, look it up. It's very interesting. Something that's also very interesting. So I don't know if you've all remember when we started hearing about COVID, but I want to say it was probably around October, November of 2019. And of course, as time went on at the beginning of the year in 2020, everything shut down around, I want to say mid-March or whatever. Now, from when we heard about the disease, this variole disease, which actually now more information is coming out. They're talking about it being more of a vascular disease. I digress. How they've magically come up with a quote-unquote vaccine only 6 or 8 months after the closure happened. Now, I find that very sus, highly sus. Highly sus because of the fact that usually when we have vaccines or quote unquote cures or medicines and stuff like that, they take years of development and then years of testing, both on non-humans and human testing. And then maybe 2, 3, maybe 4-ish years, they may come out with that. Okay, let me take my my tinfoil hat off. My conspiracy theories. Highly suspect. Anyways. It is when and I quote, "It is then mere coincidence that cures for major disease have been almost non-existent since polio. In the mainstream Western medical views, that is, but that drug companies spend billions, I want to say probably most likely trillions, to come up with drugs that miraculously only treat symptoms without curing anything, while requiring continuous usage and thus repeat purchases, often for the duration of the person's life, or that every drug causes a series of short or long-term side effects that virtually ensures that the person who uses it will be diseased in the future, rendering that person effectively a returning loyal customer. Or that every year new diseases seem to spring up for even normal developmental behaviors. Look up obedience defiance disorder, meaning it is just coincidence that 1, the products, drugs, pharmaceutical companies develop, and 2, the ever-expanding definitions of diseases and encompass increasingly broader segments of the population fit the perfect standard model for long-term, consistent corporate profit. I find it interesting that that particular doctor, going back to my story, where the doctor, I was having panic attacks and the doctors couldn't figure it out. They thought I was having a heart attack or heart murmurs or heart stutters or whatever they want to call it. And they gave me all this medication. They gave me all of these tests. They gave me all these EKGs. I believe they did an ultrasound on my heart. And at the end of that 30 days of going through all these things and wondering if I'm going to die, they basically go, "Oh, well, you're having panic attacks. Next time it happens, just take a couple of Tylenol and you'll be fine." But nowhere in that conversation with that doctor, the doctor say, well, Jacob, you're actually, I think about that time I was probably like 70 or 80 pounds overweight. They didn't go, it's probably a good idea, Jacob, for you to eat more vegetables and more lean meats and probably stop eating the carne asada fries, rolled tacos, and 2 liters of Dr. Pepper. I find it very fascinating that doctors do not bring that up. And instead, they prescribe you a pill. So even with this possibility in mind, I still have hope. I still have hope for humanity. I still feel that we can make the right choices, which push ourselves to do what will be best for ourselves. And even though it may be hard, I personally thought about doing a lap band or bariatric surgery. Like, I've really contemplated, maybe I just go under a knife. My only thing is that even though dying from a procedure is relatively low, and people do have fairly good success on it, as long as they stick to their diet or their new food choices that they have to take, I still think it is best to do as much. For me, it's important to do as much as I personally can naturally. Because I know in the long run, if I can create the positive and impactful habits that are going to benefit my life, it will help me in the long run. So even though this is my current view of things, I feel it is important for people to understand that we do live in an amazing country. We do live in amazing times. And I really do believe that we can bring not only humanity back, but we can bring America back to the point where not only we love our country, we love and care about each other. We stop bickering about our disagreements and start joining arm in arm. We start joining arm in arm against the real threats to our families, against the real threats against our country. But our country's not perfect, and I get that. It's not a perfect system. There are some things that do need to be changed, things that do need to be fixed because they're seemingly broken, or they're not being, they're being underutilized or overutilized. But we can choose to make the better choices. I will always champion the individuals who choose, even if they want to eat McDonald's every day, which, the food, obviously I like other places, other McDonald's, personally, taste-wise. But, if you want to eat a cheeseburger every day, go eat a cheeseburger every day. But just realize that those choices do have consequences on our bodies. And that's why I've decided to take this journey. That's why I've taken the opportunity to read the Bright Lines Eating book by Susan Thompson Pierce. And her story really did resonate with me. And to see her success and to see the multiple case studies that she had with like thousands of people having results, I will now present to you my personal results. So I'm excited to tell you about these because it's been about a week, and like maybe a half of the week I was just kind of sort of doing it. And this last week I really buckled down, and I really did pretty well. Even though I did not follow the no sugar and no flour perfectly, I did weigh almost, I would probably say between 85 and 90% of my meals. I followed the plan as strict as I could, and I can already feel some of the changes in my body. And I can see the changes in my body, and I can see the changes on the scale. So let's talk a little bit about kind of the negative aspects I've been feeling with my personal results. And again, consult your doctors, consult your nutritionist, do your research. I am not a doctor. I am not a nutritionist. Just so that's out of the way. I have been feeling head fog. So I don't know if you've noticed, but my speech has been kind of slowed. I've kind of been a bit more slurry than I normally am. I'm also a bit more, I'm having more difficulty grasping words than I usually was. And I think that's because my brain is trying to heal from all of the crap I've been feeding my body. I really don't think that's because, this particular way I'm eating is hurting me or anything like that. I think it's just my body is going through these changes, and it's, it's dropping the weight. It's consuming a lot of this fat storage that I have. And I think my body's just like, I don't really like this as fuel, but you're not giving me the calories I need to keep putting this away, so I'm just going to utilize it. And so that's what I think is going on. And that's just because of, what I've read in the book and what I've understood about my personal body. I kind of think that's what's going on. So yeah, and I don't like it because I already struggle enough as an adult having ADD, ADHD, and depression and stuff. But I realize what it is, and I realize what's happening. And so even though my speech isn't perfect, even though I am having brain fog and I'm struggling to kind of pull words, I'm still moving in the right direction. So that's good. My body's sleep schedule has been a little weird. Like, it doesn't really matter what time I go to sleep. Like, if I go to bed early or if I go to bed late, I seem to be getting up, waking up sometime between like 6 and 7 o'clock in the morning, and I have trouble going back to sleep. And that's probably because I'm getting the sleep that I need. But my wife is struggling with me trying to sleep because apparently with my current eating situation, I'm not really sleeping that well. I think it's because my brain is trying to heal. So I'm going to keep with it, and I'm going to kind of talk to you about the results next couple of weeks, over on TikTok and Instagram and Facebook. I'll make sure to post those videos there. I'll try to do like a 1-minute video every week, just kind of talking about my experiences. So even with those negatives, I still got quite a bit of positives. So I do feel less down or depressed in general, and I don't feel it pretty much at all this past week, because I did kind of start a little earlier, and then I was a little bit more stricter throughout the week. So I did notice that I'm not feeling down. I'm not feeling like the world is just like, too hard to live or anything like that. I'm definitely feeling a difference in my outlook on life, which is really awesome. I no longer have what I like to call that 5 o'clock block or the afternoon, I want to take a nap feeling. I actually have the energy almost consistently throughout the day. And I freaking love that, because I deliver packages, and sometimes I do anywhere between like 80 to 100, 120 stops. Just today, unfortunately, we had a really rough, really heavy day. I did 173 stops. And I'm still on this podcast. I'm still live, even though I'm a little bit late, and I have the energy, and like, I know I can be up until like, 11 or 12 o'clock at night and still have quite a bit of energy. So my body's trying to figure out what to do with all of this stuff. But it's doing well. And I really do like that energy. Also, I dropped 6.2 pounds. I weighed myself 2 Sundays ago at 331 even. And then when I weighed myself this last Sunday, I was 324.8. Yeah, that's pretty exciting in 1 week. Even though the average on these studies, in these cases of these individuals, they usually drop between 1 and 3 pounds on average. And I've been told, for those that have experienced this bright lines eating, is that like your first couple of weeks, you're going to drop hard, and then it's going to slow down. So I'm kind of seeing where that goes. But I'm hoping as the time goes by, the more negative results will subside, my brain will heal. I want to keep this energy. I want to feel like I can do anything. I want my body to heal so I can put in better food and get the better results that I desire. I really want to be down, like back to like the last time I remember weighing myself, like in high school, which was like 275. I would love to be back at that weight, 60, 70 pounds lighter. Oh, that'd be amazing. I was pushing 340 pounds. And now I'm around 325. And I know that doesn't sound like a huge deal, but it is for me. And I'm excited. I'm so stoked for what the future holds. And man, I'm planning on sharing more information as I get more results. I just want to share it with everybody. I can't recommend this book enough. But again, definitely do your research. Talk to your doctor. Talk to a nutritionist. Really get the information that you need and find out what's going to be best for you, and definitely go for it. Like, there's no time like the present. And it's not like you have to make a grandiose change today. You can start with a baby step. Maybe your first baby step is to learn more information. Take 20 or 30 minutes out of your day and do some research. Or take some time and schedule an appointment with your doctor or your nutritionist. Or maybe pick up and read a book. I really do feel that it's important to look into better eating. It doesn't have to be as drastic as I've taken it. Like, you don't have to weigh all your food. You don't have to put it in these little individual meal preps and like eat the same thing over and over again. Like, you can start with something different. Maybe just add more vegetables to your food. Maybe a bit less of the hard carbohydrates and starches. Maybe start instead of going out twice a day to McDonald's, maybe just go out once. Instead of getting a large, maybe get a medium or even a small. Like, little choices like that add up over time. And honestly, if I can do it, I know that anybody else can do it. And I believe in you. And I freaking love you. I just want to thank you all for listening to this podcast tonight. I know it's a little bit different with me doing it solo, and I know I'm trying to figure this out, and I came up with an outline, and it feels like it's working pretty well. But I hope you enjoyed us, and I just want to thank you all for listening to this podcast this day. We are streaming live not only every Thursday night, but now every Tuesday night at 8 p.m. That's my stutter. 8 p.m. Mountain Standard Time, 9 p.m. Central Time. And we hope that you will join us. Hopefully we have earned your subscription today. And if you haven't already, hit that subscription button. It's the little red button down below. Hit that notification bell so you know exactly when we go live. And from our families to yours, good night.